tasks you can run in parallel. So if you have hardware that will support it, you've got a multi-core processor, you can run multiple compact threads to increase the throughput there. And there's now in 8.5.2, there's a Dash ODS version that just does the copy style compact if a database is not the proper ODS level. So that's, you can't run that with other options. So sometimes people like to run the copy style with the LZ1 update or something like that, but ODS just runs as its own. Here's some examples of some of the new options you can run. This load compact -W7 minus lowercase 7 or lowercase w minus lowercase x 240. Something as a task that'll compact databases that haven't been successfully compacted in the last 7 days. It skips the system databases and will stop after 4 hours. The second option there with the X30 and the X720 is going to skip the system databases, limits compact to 30 minutes per database, and will run for a total of 6 hours, and will run 2 threads. So depending on the databases, the minimum number you're going to run is 24 databases, since you're running 2 threads there. And another option, another tip here is a Notesity setting called a cluster admin on equals 1. It allows you to create copies or replicas of databases from the server console. It can be set on any Domino server. It doesn't need to be a cluster, but it takes advantage of some of the cluster technology that's in Domino to do this. It still maintains a security model, so the source server has to have the proper rights on the target server if they're not in the same cluster or whatever. So you can't just decide, I want to create, I'm going to take a database on server 1, and I'm going to replicate it on server 2 because I want to, and expect it to work. Server 2's server doc has to include server 1 as an entity that has rights to create a new replica or create a new database if you're creating a copy. So it's very useful. We use it a lot for refreshing test servers with production data. So we're going to create a new copy of the production data over there on a test or QA server. It's very helpful, and it works very well. It bypasses the admin key, doesn't lock up your client, and it works pretty well. So cluster admin on, you can create a copy, you can create a replica. The command is CL copy, and then the source server, 2 exclamations, and then the database name, space, target server, 2 exclamations, the target DB name that you're going to want it to be called. And that creates a non-replica copy on the target server. You can use it to create a copy on the same server. You just drop the server references there. So it would just be CF copy, source db.nsf, target db.nsf. Creating a database copy of replicas from the server console. So this is a replica. Is CL copy, and then the same source and target references, and then replica at the end. And if you wanted to create a design-only copy, you would use template at the end. It's very, very useful. Sometimes it's nice, like on a development server, to be able to do that as well. The devs sometimes need to make multiple copies of a database as they're progressing or want to back it up. Something that gives them an easy way to do that doesn't lock up their client. Fault reports. This is another thing that we don't see a lot of in the users, in the environments we see. Collects client and server fault information. Allows you to group crashes together so that you can focus on the top issues that are affecting the users. It is always set up properly so that you can analyze that. You need one server to be configured to run the fault analysis task on the collection servers. And it's just configured in the desktop policy there. You can see sometimes it's missed because you have to kind of click over. Depending on how big your screen is, you may not see the diagnostic tab. just create a mail-in database using the fault reports database template. A lot of times new servers, that's automatically created for you. You can prompt users to send a report. I generally don't like that set because a lot of times they won't do it. So if you set it to no, it just happens in the background. You can prompt the user for comments or not, and then size information on how big you want to do that, and whether or not to remove diagnostic files after so many days. What will happen is the client starts, it'll check and see what's in the IBM technical support folder, and it'll clear out any old crash information. 90 days seems like a good number to me because after 3 months, any crash data really isn't useful. So you can set it to something even smaller than that if you wanted. On the server, it's configured in the configuration document in the diagnostic tab. The important part is down here in the orange box. The fault analyzer, you want this to run on at least one server. You don't set this in the default server config. You just want this running on the server where the fault database is, and you can allow it to scour all the mail-in databases if you want. I like to set it to specifically the database that we're collecting. Sometimes you might have 2 fault databases, one for clients, one for servers. You can list them both in that field, and it will run. The nice thing about this is the fault analyzer goes through and it does all the analytics and groups the crashes together, so you can see, oh, I've got 20 instances of this crash. I've got 10 of this, and 2 of this. So that really helps you focus on what you need to look at. Defining when off-hour tasks run. The server tasks at in the notes ini. It has some defaults. At 1 o'clock, it always wants to run catalog and design. 2, it wants to run updall. 5, you want to run stat log. But what if you've got a server where this is a backup server and it's going to be down during those hours? Well, you can go in and use a program doc to set it, or just go in and change the notes ini setting. The other thing is, are you seeing docs? You've got the log set to purge every 7 days. You've got the default purge interval set, but you've got 30 days or 60 days worth of log information. That means that something isn't right because the server is generally, the stat log task is not running when it should. So you can remove them out of the notes ini, and you can use a program doc to run it. A lot of times design doesn't need to run daily. You're not making changes in mail templates every day. So maybe a weekly run is enough. So just use a program doc and set it to run when you want to, daily, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever the purge interval is. And we're talking about the log not purging. At 4 a.m., that's when the log purge is run. So if you're not going to have your server up and running there, you're going to want to add this log purge hour task, notes ini, to the configuration document, so that you can change it to whatever hour you want. It is on the top of the hour. You can't set it to run it half past or quarter after the hour. So you just want to make sure you're avoiding times when you've got a lot of agents or other high workload going on, and it takes effect after the next server restart. We had an instance where we had a server that was down regularly during that time period, and they had 2 months of 2 months of log information in there. And this was a fairly clean server, so there was nothing going on. There weren't a lot of errors in it. So we added this, restarted the server, and it started purging properly. Moving mail files for iNotes users. In the past, AdminP didn't process the replace mail file field step without some manual information or intervention. And usually this was, mimicking the affected user on the notes client to trick AdminP into moving the process forward. In 8.0, there was a notes ini setting that was added to help complete the process. It's called AdminP Move Mail Completion Overwrite. And 0 is the default. It's basically any iNotes user You can set it to allow any iNotes user who's connected to the mail file one or more times will trigger the completion. Any iNotes user connected more than one time can never use notes. You can configure how admin P is going to get the trigger on this. Using the option 3, you can, whether notes or iNotes will trigger it. This will allow either a notes user or the iNotes user to trigger it. But what happens is that then it triggers a process to clean up the old mail file. So depending on when the user triggers it, you can have some instances where the notes client user tries to go to the old mail server and gets an error saying, oh, this mail file isn't here anymore because iNotes triggered it, but they hadn't updated the notes side of it yet. So it's a good tool, good option if you need it. You're going to need to kind of test it out and see what there is there. Server access for internet ports. We've had the not access setting to restrict notes client access using the deny list for receiving whatever. But the internet ports were still open. So if you added a user to the deny list that hadn't cleaned up their person doc yet, which we see in some cases, they could still log into iNotes and access their mail that way if they weren't removed properly. This has been around since Domino 7, but a lot of times admins don't see it because they don't spend a lot of time in the ports tab checking out what's new there. So there's a field there on every protocol to enforce server access settings, and you just want to go in there and set that to yes, and what that does is it'll basically mimic the NRPC attitude of, oh, are you in a deny access list? Yes, you are. I'm sorry, you don't have access. So works very well, and again, this is something that we don't see used very often in our client engagements. So, and just a restart of each task that you want will take that change. It's my favorite quick monitoring tip, just setting an event handler for text on the server. So you've got something that you want to monitor for. For instance, you want to monitor when full access admin is enabled by an admin on the server. You can create an event handler for a text string on the console, and it will report it using whatever event you want, mail, prompt, whatever. Of course, this does require that the event task is running on the server, which should be anyway, and it's useful for a one-off thing if you're looking for, say, a print statement in an agent, or if you're monitoring for, say, full access admin or something else. You want to make sure a server task started or ended. So let's take a look at that really quick. There we go. So anyway, here's the event message.